Manju's
Hello?
going to go through some issues with the database, and then Carl, and then Shonda has.
Hey, my presentation isn't going to be as exciting as Dan's, but it's an introduction to the CALERIE public use database. Going to take you through where to find information on the database, how to download it and install it on your computer, a little bit about the raw and analysis data sets, and some important things you should know about using the database, and some of the major pieces of data that we have. Okay, so Bill showed you the website. It's calerie.duke.edu. And on the left-hand side in the quick navigation panel on the left, you can find information in the database documentation. And here I already sort of showed you what was there. But I think the most useful piece here is the guide to using the database, and that'll actually cover a lot of the material that I'm going to talk about today, but it goes in more detail, and you'll probably need to look at that when you're downloading the data and installing it. And then there's all the data dictionaries and CRF forms are also in the data documentation area. Okay, I lost that. All right. So it has the evaluation schedule, the visit codes, with data dictionaries, and then there's another document called Analysis Dataset Details, and that actually goes into details in how the variables are derived. Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, so we also have data handling rules, and that shows some of the decisions we made on how to derive some of our analysis variables. If you're interested in that, for example, the RMR, core body temperature, QOL scoring algorithms, and so on. Okay, so to download the data, Bill already showed you whoops, I need to. Oh, Bill, can you? I need to go back to, sorry? Oh, there I am, okay. No, actually, I need to go to the website. So if you go to the Apply for Samples and Data Analysis, so down to the bottom, you click on that, and there's a form that you have to fill out. Just give your name and contact information, and then you hit submit. I'm not going to actually download the data right now. Okay, but it'll give you options to download the SAS database or the ASCII database. So when you click on that, it'll download to your computer. And those are zip files. So what you download, it'll either say ASCII database.zip or SAS database.zip, and then you'll need to extract those. So you can click on that, and then you can click on that, the actual folder, and then you have to hit extract, and then you tell it the destination that you want to extract to, and then the files will go there. Okay. When you extract the ASCII files, okay, there's separate folders for analysis files and raw data files, and I'll explain the difference in a little while. But so the ASCII files are CSV files, comma separated files, and you can import those into most analysis software. If you try to open it, let me do the clinic weight data. On my computer, it opens directly into Excel, but it's all squished into one column, so there's an easy way to convert that to separate columns. You highlight, and this is all in the guide to the database, by the way, but I'm just demonstrating it here. You click on the first column, you click on Data, Text to Columns. You just do Next, and then here you do comma instead of tab. That's really the only change you need to make, and then you're done. And then you can see the data is in separate columns the way you want it. Okay, so back to the slides. Okay, so I showed you how to download the files. It's sort of a similar process for the SAS data sets, but when you extract them, they're going to be SAS transport files, so you'll need to import them into SAS. So in the database guide, there are detailed instructions. It's basically a proc copy, but it shows you sample code on how to import the files into SAS. Okay, and I've already talked about the ASCII. Okay, so the difference between the raw data sets and analysis data sets. The raw data sets correspond directly to data that was collected on the case report forms, as well as the original data that we got from core labs, central labs, that includes like blood chemistry from the Vermont lab, DLW data from the DLW Analysis Center, and DEXA from the DEXA Reading Center. And also electronic files of data that were collected from instruments like RMR and core temperature. So, those things I mentioned, like they won't, you won't see them on the case report forms except for when they were collected. But there is documentation for them in the documentation area. Okay, so the raw data set variables, they can be mapped directly to the CRF, like I said, as well as these other central lab variables. But the structure is not convenient for analysis. A lot of the data sets are kind of stacked, or the, data from one assessment will be split across several data sets. So you'll need to do some merging and manipulation if you want to make those useful. So we actually recommend just skipping the raw data sets and going straight to the analysis data sets. The analysis data sets were derived from the raw data sets according to our study data handling rules, and then they've been transformed to an analyzable structure, and they have the derived analysis variables that we've been using. And most of the analysis data sets have one record per subject per study visit, which I'll talk about shortly. And all the analysis data variables are documented in the file called analysis dataset details. So again, you should use the analysis data sets, not raw, for most purposes. Okay, so here's some important points you should know about the database. The database does include data on all subjects who attended at least one in-clinic screening visit, and that was 1,069 subjects, but only 220 of them are randomized, and 2 dropped out before starting the intervention. So you want to make sure that you're only using the relevant subjects for your analysis. So at the data set called Subject 1, there's a variable called RAND, which indicates that the subject was randomized, and a variable called interven for those who started intervention. And then there's another data set called IVRS RAND, which has the treatment variable. So you'll want to merge those data sets together to identify either the randomized or the started intervention populations, so that you don't end up using people who were not randomized. Okay, so the major study visits are baseline, which was actually 4 to 6 weeks prior to randomization to allow for the two-week DLW periods. Then we had the major outcome visits were at month 12 and month 24 for all subjects, and additionally at month 6 and month 18, there were mostly assessments done on the people randomized to the CR arm, but weights and a few other things were done for all subjects. And some of the major study visits consist of more than one sub-visit. Like, for example, the baseline actually consisted of about 6 sub-visits, and some assessments like weight were taken at each of those sub-visits. And things like DLW, RMR, and DEXA were done twice at baseline. So the way we deal with that, if there was more than one, if a assessment was done more than once at a visit, we have those individual results, but then we also have a record that has the mean for that visit. So for example, for DLW, there's one record for baseline 1, and that's visit code 4, and there's another record for baseline 2, which is visit code 5. And then there's another visit called visit 0, which is the mean of all the baseline values. So the main point I'm trying to make here is make sure you include only the relevant visits. So you probably don't want to include all 3 of those baseline records. So you might want to separate baseline 1 and baseline 2, or you might just want to use the visit 0, which is the baseline mean. And here are the visit codes. So if you're using the SAS data, one thing I forgot to mention, when you download the SAS data,